Welcome to Getting Started with Elixir by Pact Publishing, Section 6, Input and Output, or I/O for short. In this section, we'll be exploring the ways in which we can read and write to the standard I/O devices, the keyboard and terminal screen, as well as manipulating files and directories. Let's move on to the first video, Standard I/O. In this video, we'll start by introducing the concept of standard I/O and follow up with examples on how we can write strings to the terminal screen and read from the keyboard in order to get user input for our programs. The concept of standard I/O is a bit like a virtual device. Our program can read and write binary data to the standard I/O, as it can with other I/O devices, and this virtual device will output data to the terminal screen when we write to it, and read data from the keyboard when we try to read from it. Elixir provides a module we can use to communicate with such I/O devices. As we can see, the module contains two specific functions for the task: read and write, which allow binary data to flow through and from any device. If no device is specified, the device is assumed to be the standard I/O. Instead of dealing with raw binary data, there are two friendlier versions of these functions we can use in our program that deal specifically with string data. Gets reads a full string from the keyboard until the user presses a termination key, like enter, and puts, which writes a full string with a new line character to the terminal screen. Let's see an example of these two functions working. We can use the io.gets function to write a string to the screen and wait indefinitely for the user input. We can then input the name John and press enter. As you can see, the return of this function is a string with the data we've just written followed by a new line character. This new line is in the string since we've pressed the enter key. Finally, let's see what happens when we use the io.puts function to write hello to the screen. When we execute the function, the screen contains our expected hello string written on it, but also the atom OK. This atom is actually the return value of the function, since all functions in Elixir must have a return value. The hello string we see on screen is a side effect of the function, having written it to the terminal. If we want to do some fancy formatting on our outputs, Elixir provides the io.ANSI module. This module contains some functions that output special ANSI characters. These characters are interpreted by some terminals to change the aspect of the text, such as its color, size, and format. There's also a convenience format function that makes it easier to write a formatted string without having to call io.ANSI functions all the time. We can use the io.puts function and pass it an array of strings to output, interleaved with the io.ANSI calls. We can use the io.ANSI read function to make the terminal display red text, followed by the string le, and then change it again to display blue text, followed by the string Elixir. This outputs Elixir with some fancy colors. We can also use the io.ANSI format function to write these state changes as atoms, and then pass the output of this function to the io.puts function, yielding the same outcome. And that's all about standard I/O. In this video, you've learned about the standard I/O and how we can use Elixir to read from the keyboard and write text to the terminal screen. We've also seen how we can change the aspect of the text we write to the screen using the special io.ANSI functions.